Hi kings and queens and kings, it's me Tippity, and we are going to be studying for the SAT. We're going to be looking at the reading section again, and today we're going to look at the history section. Alright, before we do that, let's talk a little bit about American history. So, unsurprisingly, the history sections, or the history passages in the SAT, focus on the American history. Let's take a look at some of the subjects that we cover. So, there is definitely the American Revolution. Hopefully you guys are familiar with that. America fights a war to become independent of the United Kingdom. And then there's a little subtopic. The French Revolution comes up occasionally because there is some connection between the French Revolution and the American Revolution. So we'll talk about that too. The other big topic is the Civil War, right? Abraham Lincoln and all that. Hopefully you guys are a little bit familiar with that part. And then the other two major topics that come up are civil rights and women's rights. Okay, so American Revolution, so hopefully you guys learned in school. England was notorious for burning through money in wars, especially with the French colonizing people and whatnot. So they decided to fund all these wars, or a lot of it, with taxes on Americans. And Americans didn't like that. They had that whole no taxation without representation thing. And then there was the Stamp Act, which is just a fancy name for taxes. The Americans in Massachusetts had the Boston Tea Party, where they threw a bunch of tea off of a boat. That leads to the War of Independence. George Washington crosses the Delaware River with his army and troops on Christmas evening, massacres the British Army while they're still partying and drinking on Christmas Day. Maybe the most American thing I've ever heard, and America becomes free and independent of England. So what type of passages do you see in the SAT? So generally, if you think about America becoming independent, suddenly this is the biggest power vacuum of the 1700s. So there's a lot of influential and powerful people from all over America that come together to make the Constitution. And you can imagine these people are very interested in making sure that the Constitution is shaped in a way that benefits them. And the two arguments, the main arguments that you see is from the North being we should consolidate federal power so that we can hold off the European nations together, and the South is more interested in keeping state power, mostly for slavery. And generally they use a lot of cryptic language here, and especially because it's so old, the English is pretty old, it's a little bit difficult to understand, but you need to be able to see through that. So slightly related is the French Revolution. So the French, also in a lot of wars, were very low on cash, particularly because they helped America become independent. They funded a lot of the American Revolution. And you've probably heard the phrase, let them eat cake. And if you know anything about history, generally speaking, when your population is hungry, you're gonna have issues. Hungry people make noise, and they got so hungry in France. Let's see, what's the basic rundown? So the common people were already very frustrated at the lack of food, and then the government of France at the time, which was broken off into royalty, nobility, and the common folk, the nobility and the royalty kind of locked out the common people out of their decision making one day. So the common people started their own government and decided to start beheading royalty and nobility. So you can imagine, let's think about the texts that are going to show up in the SAT regarding the French Revolution. So if you are a rich or noble or royal person in England or America, you're probably looking at the French Revolution and thinking to yourself, let's make sure that doesn't happen here. So that's kind of the text that you see. So so after the American Revolution, The North and the South kind of argue. Basically, the North kind of lays it down saying, if you leave, we will destroy you. They say that very delicately to the South, but that's basically what their message boils down to. And after a while, Abraham Lincoln is elected. Slavery is still a problem. The South tries to leave, and the North destroys them, right? Yeah, so in this section, you'll see a lot of speeches from Abraham Lincoln. I think you'll really like it. I really like Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, he speaks very clearly. And the Civil War is over, and racism in America is gone forever, right? No. So if you know anything about America, you probably know that race relations between black people and white people is kind of like a big theme. So the civil rights movement, so now we're all the way in like the 1950s, 1960s. Up until then, black people, there were a lot of laws that kept black people from doing basic stuff like riding at the front of the bus, sharing swimming pools with white people, or even drinking fountains. And there was a big movement to kind of get the laws, at least, to treat black people as equals to white people. And the text that you see in the SAT, a lot of them I've read are from the Congress. You can imagine if like I was a congressman during the civil rights movement, I would have just been like, hey, can y'all stop being so racist? But that probably wouldn't have been super productive. People would start yelling, it would be pandemonium, and nothing would get done. So the type of speeches that you see in the civil rights in the SAT is more like, it is clearly time for us congressmen to come together and deal with this issue of race that has been a thorn in American society. It is come to a time where it can no longer be ignored. We must act. Yeah. So So for you guys, for you young kids, there was actually a time before Donald Trump where politicians spoke very delicately, and you have to be able to kind of understand what they're getting at. And then finally, there's women's rights. So for women's rights, there are some key dates. I would say 1920. 1920 was when women got the right to vote. Happy 100th anniversary. So when you're looking at passages of women's rights, you should take special note of what year it is. If it's before 1920, they're probably talking about women's right to vote. Whereas if it's after 1920, they're probably talking about women's right to work, since they already have the right to vote. And today we're actually going to take a look at a women's right passage. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right. So here we have a passage. This passage is adapted from Virginia Woolf, 3 Guineas, 1938. Yeah, so it's 1938 now. So this is after women have the right to vote. So this is going to be about women in the workforce, and they tell you in the excerpt here actually. Woolf considers the situation of women in English society. English society? What position in English society? So the situation. What situation? Their ability to join the workforce. So I will say, Virginia Woolf, if you are not familiar, is kind of insane. I don't say that just because she's a feminist. I know it's like a meme to be like, oh, feminists are crazy, blah, blah. That's not what I'm saying. Virginia Woolf is a famous author from England. She is also famous for being institutionalized several times, and then she actually takes her own life by putting rocks in the pockets of her jacket and walking into a river. So I think that's like pretty clearly insane, right? And I think you'll see that when we read this passage together. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Okay. Close at hand is the bridge over River Thames, an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. The river flows beneath, barges pass, laden with timber, bursting with corn. There on one side are the domes and spires of the city, on the other, Westminster and the Houses of Parliament. It is a place to stand on by the hour dreaming, but not now. Now we are pressed for time. Now we are here to consider facts. Now we must fix our eyes upon the procession. the procession of the sons of educated men. Okay, so she's very interested in the procession of the sons of educated men. What does that mean? Let's read on to see what she's talking about. There they go, our brothers who have been educated at public schools and universities, mounting those steps, passing in and out of those doors, ascending those pulpits, preaching, teaching, administering justice, practicing medicine, transacting business, making money. So she's actually talking about the morning commute to work in London. So here, I feel like this is kind of like the first clue that she's not quite normal. Like, imagine, I kind of live near the Seattle area. Like, imagine, like, being near I-5 at, like, 9 a.m. or, like, 8:30 or whatever, and being like, oh my god, look at the rush hour traffic. It's so amazing. Just, like, definitely not normal. Anyway, let's see why she's so interested in the morning traffic. Here we go. It's a solemn sight always, a procession, like a caravanserai crossing a desert. But now, for the past 20 years or so, it is no longer a sight merely, a photograph or fresco scrawled upon the walls of time at which we can look with merely an aesthetic appreciation. For there, traipsing along at the tail end of the procession, we go ourselves. So this is why it's so important to read the excerpt. So when Virginia Woolf says we, she's talking about women. So women are joining that commute to work. And that makes a difference. We who have looked so long at the pageant in books or from a curtained window, watched educated men leaving the house at about 9:30 to go to an office, returning to the house at about 6:30 from an office, need look passively no longer. We too can leave the house, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors, make money, administer justice. We who now agitate these humble pens may in another century or two speak from a pulpit. Nobody will dare contradict us then. We shall be the mouthpieces of the divine spirit. A solemn thought, is it not? Who can say whether, as time goes on, we may not dress in military uniform, with gold lace on our breasts, swords at our sides, and something like the old family coal scuttle on our heads, save that venerable object was never decorated with plumes of white horsehair. You laugh. Indeed, the shadows of the private house still makes those dresses look a little queer. We have worn private clothes so long, but we have not come here to laugh or to talk of fashions, men and women's. Okay, so here she goes on like a long aside about like how cool it would be to dress in fancy military uniform, but then she immediately says, oh, we're not here to talk about fashion. Okay. What are we here for? We are here on the bridge to ask ourselves certain questions, and they are very important questions, and we have very little time in which to answer them. The questions that we have to ask and to answer about that procession during this moment of transition are so important that they may well change the lives of all men and women forever. For we have to ask ourselves here and now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is it taking us, the procession of educated men? The moment is short. It may last 5 years, 10 years, or perhaps only a matter of a few months longer. But you will object. You will have no time to think. You have your battles to fight, your rent to pay, your bazaars to organize. That excuse shall not serve you, madame. As you know from your own experience, there are facts that prove it. The daughters of educated men have always done their thinking from hand to mouth, not under green lamps at study tables in the cloisters of secluded colleges. They have thought while they stirred the pot, while they rocked the cradle. It was thus that they won us the right to our brand new sixpence. It fails to us now to go on thinking, how are we to spend that sixpence? Think we must. Let us think in offices, in omnibuses. While we stand in the crowd watching coronations and Lord Mayor's shows, let us think in the galleries of the House of Commons, in the law courts. Let us think at baptism and marriages and funerals. Let us never cease from thinking. What is this civilization in which we find ourselves? What are these ceremonies and why should we take part in them? What are these professions and why should we make money out of them? Where in short is it leading us? The procession of the sons of educated men. Okay, so I think like this part you can really tell she's off the rails. Like particularly this part, right? Let us think at baptism and marriages and funerals. Like here I'm imagining Virginia Woolf. So you like just had a kid, your kid is having a baptism, your father died, you're at the funeral, or you're getting married. But Virginia Woolf is over here like, oh, your dad died? But what about feminism? We live in a society. Okay, Virginia Woolf. Like, especially think about the date, right? 1938? 1938? Like, I think Hitler just invaded Czechoslovakia? I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I guess it's good that someone's thinking about women's rights and women in the workplace, but there are like more important things going on in 1938. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know, maybe you disagree. Maybe women in the workplace is the most pressing question of the time. We'll see. Okay, let's answer some questions. The main purpose of the passage is to emphasize the value of a tradition. No. So tradition is kind of being broken here again, right? So women are joining the workforce. Stress the urgency of an issue. That sounds pretty good. Highlight the severity of social divisions. Again, so C might be a little tempting, but again, we're talking about how women are joining the workforce. That's kind of like the opposite of social division. Social division is like dissolving here. D, question the feasibility of an undertaking. No, women are actually joining the workforce. So the correct answer here will be B. 33. The central claim of the passage is that A. Educated women face a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. B. Women can have positions of influence in English society only if they give up some of their traditional roles. C. The male monopoly on power in English society has had grave and continuing effects. D. The entry of educated women into positions of power traditionally held by men will transform those positions. Okay. So I think we can eliminate C. So this is where like you kind of have to focus on what she's actually saying. So you might be tempted to think, oh yeah, feminists hate men, but I mean, there are some texts in the SAT where the women is just like, oh my god, men are horrible, but Virginia Woolf is not one of those. Virginia Woolf is just really focused on how important it is that women are joining the workforce, not really interested in how men have shaped society, at least in this passage. I think B, we can also eliminate that. She does talk about some traditional roles, but she never says outright that women need to give up those roles to gain influence in English society. So now we're down to A and D. Educated women face a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. Or D, the entry of educated women into positions of power traditionally held by men will transform those positions. I think D might be implied, but definitely, like, I would say the central claim is not D. She never like directly says that women are going to change the world. She talks about how are women going to join these jobs, blah blah. I prefer A here, and I hope you agree. Okay, yeah. If you're a little bit more curious and want a better description, I think it's always a good idea to check out the explanations that the College Board gives for these questions. 34. Woolf uses the word we throughout the passage mainly too. Again, it's really important to read the excerpt. She's talking about women. Yeah, so if you read the excerpt, that becomes pretty clear. And I think you'll see that for a lot of questions in the reading section, the answer can just be grabbed from the excerpt. Is she talking about reflect the growing friendliness among a group of people, advance the need or candor among a group of people, establish a sense of solidarity among a group of people, reinforce the need for respect among a group of people. So here, hopefully you guys know the definition of candor and solidarity. If you don't, definitely write that down in your notes. Candor is like honesty, and then solidarity is like togetherness or brotherhood, or I guess in this case it would be sisterhood. And here, yeah, she's definitely using we to kind of build a sense of camaraderie, solidarity among the women that joining the workforce in London. 35. According to the passage, Woolf chooses the setting of the bridge because it... Okay, I really like this question. So these are one of these questions where the answer is directly in the passage word for word. And this one actually shows up pretty early. So close at hand is a bridge over River Thames, an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. Yeah, right here. Why are we there? It's an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. What are we looking at? The river flows beneath, barges past, laden with timber, bursting with corn. There on one side are the domes and spires of the city, on the other Westminster and the Houses of Parliament. It is a place to stand on by the hour dreaming, but not now. So it is a good place for dreaming, but that's not what we're doing. Now we are pressed for time. Now we are here to consider facts. We must fix our eyes upon the procession of the sons of educated men. So we're here at the bridge because it is an admirable vantage ground for the procession of the sons of educated men. Yeah, it is conducive to a mood of fanciful reflection. Yeah, it is, but she said that's not why we're here. Provides a good view of the procession of the sons of educated men. B, yes, B. C is within sight of historic episodes to which she alludes. No. D is symbolic of the legacy of the past and present sons of educated men. No. 36. Woolf indicates that the procession she describes in the passage, A, has come to have a more practical influence in recent years. B, has become a celebrated feature of English public life. C, includes all the richest and most powerful men in England. D, has become less exclusionary in its membership in recent years. So the students I've worked with, they like choice C for some reason, and she does imply that they are educated, or at least they're the sons of educated men. But let's think about this. So who are the most... Yeah, so here's the key. Richest and most powerful men in England. So I don't think the richest... I mean, certainly they're well off. They're like probably upper middle class or middle class. But I wouldn't call them the richest and the most powerful. Like the king or the queen, they're not commuting to work. Like, if you think about America, like... Jeff Bezos is probably not in like the 9 a.m. rush hour, you know? He's like probably taking a helicopter or has some underground secret tunnel. She indicates that the commute has become less exclusionary. Because why? Because women have joined that commute. And 37 is connected to 36, which choice provides the evidence for the answer to the previous question. You guys can't even see question 36. Can you see it now? Yeah, there we go. Okay, 37 though, which choice provides the best evidence for that answer? So we're looking for evidence that the commute has become less exclusionary. Let's bust out the highlighter. Lines 12 through 17. There they go. There they go. Our brothers who have been educated at public schools and universities, mounting those steps, passing in and out of those doors, ascending those pulpits, preaching, teaching, administering justice. Okay, so here she's just talking about the men that commute, the sons of educated men. Okay, I don't think that's correct. No. B, 17 to 19. It is a solemn sight always, a procession. Like a caravanserai crossing a desert. So here I think she's just like flexing her writing skills, like she's just being like poetic or whatnot. I don't think this shows how the commute has become less exclusionary. So 23 to 24, for there, trappesing at the tail end of the procession, we go ourselves. So here, you remember, this one, you need to understand that we represents women. And because women have joined the procession, it is less exclusionary. Yeah, I like that one. Let's take a look at D again, or D, for the first time. 30 to 34, we too can leave the house, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors, make money, administer justice. We who now agitate these humble pens may in another century or two speak from a pulpit. So this one's pretty good too. This one's talking about how women are joining the workforce. But I still prefer C because choice C refers to the procession directly, or kind of choice D refers to the commute kind of tangentially. Yeah, I think D is nice, but I definitely think C is better. Okay. How many more questions we got? 4. Not bad, not bad. Making quick progress. Woolf characterizes the questions in lines 53 to 57 as both. Okay, so there are some questions, and Woolf characterizes them somehow. Okay, where are the questions at? Okay, for we have to ask ourselves here and now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is it leading us? The procession of educated men. And she characterizes it, so she talks about like the character, or she describes these questions. How does she describe them? So this probably comes before. Yeah, let's start up here. We are here on the bridge to ask ourselves certain questions. They are very important questions, and we have very little time in which to answer them. Okay, so here it is. So the questions are important, and we have very little time to answer them. So that's probably the answer, right? All right, let's go back to 38. She characterizes these questions as controversial and threatening. No. Weighty and unanswerable. No. Momentous and pressing. Yeah, momentous is another word for important. Pressing is like, there's a time limit. Yeah, exactly. Provocative and mysterious. No, that's not what she's talking about. Which choice provides the best evidence? I think we just looked at that, right? So, we highlighted it. It's right here. What is that? 49, 48, 47. 47. Wait. Is it 46 to 47 or 48 to 49? And or question. So ends with A, ends with questions. B starts with and. Oh, and they are very important questions, and we have very little time in which to answer them. Okay. Yeah, so we're looking for 48. 48. Yeah, so B. There we go. 40. Which choice most closely captures the meaning of the figurative sixpence referred to in lines 70 and 71? Okay, so sixpence, if you're familiar with like the pound, sixpence is like some change. It's like basically a nickel. Let's take a look at the lines. It was thus that they won us the right to our brand new sixpence. It falls on us now to go on thinking, how are we to spend that sixpence? Okay, so money. So does money represent tolerance? A, tolerance. B, knowledge. C, opportunity. Or D, perspective. Money. What does money represent? Money represents opportunity. Yeah. So if you have money, you can do a variety of stuff. You can travel, buy stuff, start a company, blah blah. I guess not so much travel nowadays, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's not tolerance or knowledge or perspective. Money is opportunity. Last one, 41. The range of places and occasions listed in lines 72 to 76, let us, ... funerals, mainly serves to emphasize how... Yeah, so this is the part where she was like being obscene, right? So like, I don't care if your dad died. I don't care if you're getting married. I don't care if you just had a baby. You better be thinking about women's rights. Let us think in offices and omnibuses while we are standing on the crowd. So let's think in the office, let's think on the bus, let's think at political ceremonies or rallies. Let us think in Congress, courts. You're getting sued. Yeah, you just got in a car accident and busted your leg and you need some money for your medical bills. But Virginia Woolf says, oh, you almost died in a car accident? Whatever. Women's rights. Women's rights. Women's rights. What is she emphasizing? She is emphasizing, is it A, how novel the challenge faced by women is? B, the pervasive need for critical reflection. Yes, it's B. It's like pervasive, it's like all invading. It's like super important that you think about this all the time. C, how complex the political and social issues of the day are. No. D, enjoyable. How enjoyable the career possibilities for women are. No, she's just saying, you better be thinking about women's rights all day, every day. Okay, I hope you guys have been practicing. Yeah, go practice. Don't you want to improve your SAT score? You better be practicing. All right, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, I know it's like, I'm a little, was that offensive? Was that too offensive? Let me know in the comments. Did I go too far? Am I a misogynist? Am I a misogynist? I don't think so. I feel like women deserve equal rights. Does that make me a feminist? Okay, in the comments, am I a feminist or a misogynist? Am I a part of the patriarchy? Am I a part of the problem? How are you doing on the SAT? Keep practicing. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and we'll see you guys next time.